pit the forces of science and reason versus the forces of, shall we say, cryptozoology, and see who wins. Earlier this week, Eric Berger, our sci-guy blogger, did a blog post essentially reporting on a story that said that 30% of Americans believe that Bigfoot is real. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So then we have Mike DeMonte, who is our one of our features web producers. He looks a little blurry here, which actually might be somewhat apropos, because Mr. DeMonte says that yes, it is very possible that Bigfoot exists. He is not dismissing it at all. So what happened after Eric had his blog post is that these two members of our staff kind of debated each other on Twitter, and we decided that perhaps we should take the debate to the public. So I hope you enjoy this. We're going to do it in a traditional debate format where each side will get a chance to present their side, and then they'll get a chance to talk to each other about it. So we're going to begin with Mike. Mike wants to argue that, yep, there may indeed be a Bigfoot. Have at it, Mike.
All right, well, first I just want to start off by saying that I believe, yes, there is a possibility of a Bigfoot. Do I know that for a fact? No. Same as most people who believe in it. The scientific community as a whole, they kind of dismiss the notion of a Bigfoot for lack of physical evidence, but there are some in the scientific community who are interested in finding out more and who believe in the possibility of a Bigfoot. One that comes to mind is Jeffrey Meldrum, who describes the possibility as Bigfoot as a valid scientific endeavor. Then you have other paleontologists, biologists, and even Jane Goodall is on board with trying to find out if Bigfoot exists. You also have universities, too, big-name universities like Oxford in England and Wolford College, which is, I believe last May, they sent out a feeler for people to send in all evidence for DNA samples for them to investigate even further. And then, you also have other evidence as well. You have people finding hair samples, the Bigfoot casts, they actually find the footprints, and sound recordings of Bigfoot's howls, and usually those noises do not match any other known animal. It's said to be sounding actually very almost ancient sounding, which is pretty interesting. And as far as the footprints, the average size in those, let me find it out. They go about 15.6 inches with a width of 7.2. Now, if you compare that to a human who's 7'3", say like a basketball player, for instance, their average width of their foot would be 5.5 inches. So you see they find these massive footprints that can't match any other animal or other person or other human, for instance. And there's more stuff I'll hit on later, but I just want to end my opening argument with stating that, through prehistoric times, the crocodiles kind of survived and adapted. And many believe that if Bigfoot exists, it could be a descendant of a Gigantopithecus, which is an ape-like creature from prehistoric days. So I'll turn it over to Eric now, and I have more stuff later.
All right, so we've heard from Mike DeMonte, who made some interesting arguments there. Now we're going to go to Eric Berger, our science reporter, and he's also known as Sci-Guy on our site. Eric, you say Bigfoot probably doesn't exist.
Well, I don't say Bigfoot probably doesn't exist. I say he does not exist. I applaud the scientific community for their efforts to try and find out if there's any DNA evidence, because certainly that would provide the smoking gun. A colleague of mine, Todd Dishotel at Columbia University, has said he's tested more than 50 DNA samples sent to him, so the effort by Oxford is nothing new. Scientists for a long time have been trying to disprove the idea of a Bigfoot, or trying to help the public understand that this isn't a realistic possibility. None of those 50 samples, by the way, were positive for DNA. But I would like to sort of offer a more basic argument for why Bigfoot doesn't exist. A couple years ago, there was a carnivorous mammal discovered in Madagascar, a little bit smaller than the size of a house cat. And So it was, it was about the size of a cat. But a carnivorous mammal had not been discovered anywhere in the world for 24 years previous to that. And yet we're supposed to believe that in the United States of America, where there have been 2,000 reported sightings of this creature, where just about everybody has a camera on them at all times that can take photos and videos, that none of these 2,000 sightings, people could have gotten a credible photograph of Bigfoot. I mean, that just boggles the imagination of how a large creature, 15 feet tall, 7 feet tall, 15 feet or 15-inch foot, would not be sighted. Where are the pictures? I mean, we haven't discovered a large mammal in the United States in centuries. So how have the Bigfoot existed in a country of 300 million people and just never been seen?
All right, Eric. That's Eric's refutation of Mike's theories. So, Mike, we'll come back to you. How do you respond?
Well, first of all, there's plenty of photos that are out there of Bigfoot that are taken all the time. Videos on YouTube, new photos are coming out all the time. I'm not saying they're all real, but these photos are always out there. So to say that they haven't been photographed is false. Also, too, I mean, if you were to see something over 7 feet tall, I mean, would you just walk right up to it and take a picture? I mean, I assume people would take caution. Also, another reason why they haven't been found is many people believe they live in areas like mountains and caves, and that's where they live inside. Now, another thing, too, if you're an explorer or scientist, you're going to have to take, a lot of things with you to go into a cave. Not only that, the most important thing is courage. How many people are brave enough to go into a dark cave they've never been in before and search for a huge ape-like creature? Speaking of caves, here's another argument I have regarding Bigfoot. Last year, they discovered the world's largest cave in Vietnam. It's the largest cave in the world, actually, and it's been there forever, and we just discovered it now. There's actually been Yeti or Bigfoot sightings around that area as well. So my argument is, if this cave could be sitting there this whole time, the largest cave in the world, and no one discovered it, why can't another species be discovered as well? Between 2000 and 2009, they discovered over 176,000 new species. We're discovering new species all the time. So I just think the main thing is, how aggressively are we looking for it? Something. Well, I'll get back to you in a second. Something that's not really respected by the scientific community is not something that's going to be aggressively researched in the first place.
All right, Eric.
The new species that are discovered are primarily bacteria or small creatures. That's why sort of the rareness of a carnivorous species being discovered was significant, and why I brought it up. And how long has it been since we've discovered a mammal that is larger than a human being? And into your question of why would someone take a picture of a 7 foot tall creature in the woods or implausibly in a cave? It's interesting that you bring up caves because none of the sightings that I'm familiar with have happened in caves. It seems like they've happened in forests. But TMZ would probably pay what, $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 for a credible photo of Bigfoot, don't you think? I mean, that would give me some courage to go in the woods and, if I actually believe they existed, and take a picture. But I would like to ask one question to you back, and that why were there no sightings of a Bigfoot, quote unquote Bigfoot, in the United States before 1958?
There actually was through Native American tribes. Native Americans. I mean, obviously they didn't have photography back then, but so you're saying this was a manufactured story in the 50s?
I'm saying it was. Well, I'm just asking you if this species has existed for a long time, and we had cameras certainly for a century before 1958. Why there were no reported sightings, before 1958?
I can't answer that question. All I could say that there was probably one sighting, and then people heard about it, and it just kind of steamrolled. People started looking for it, or I mean, there's plenty of mischaracterizations and hoaxes all the time. So there's plenty of sightings.
Can I
Good.
So in the 1950s, there's a guy in California in Humboldt County named Ray Wallace. He had a construction company that built logging roads on the Pacific coast, and he was having trouble with losing some of his vehicles to thieves or to vandals. So he had a friend create a cast of a 16-inch long foot that he could strap onto his feet and walk around the woods where his vehicles were to deter these thieves. And in 1958, the local paper, the Humboldt Times, got a picture of these feet and ran a big story about Bigfoot in the woods of California. And after that, there were a bunch of Bigfoot sightings. Now, the interesting thing is that his son, after his father died, in 2002 came forward actually with the cast of these original feet. And I'm going to try to share it. Technical difficulties here. I'd like to show a photo of the actual feet, but it's not letting me do screen share. But it's just difficult for me to believe that this species would exist for hundreds of years in the United States, and that there would be no sightings until 1958. And then there's been an increasing number of sightings, especially after the 1967 quote-unquote film that purported to show Bigfoot walking in the woods of California.
Eric, can I ask a question? One of the interesting things about Bigfoot is that it is a cross-cultural phenomenon. There are reports throughout the world in different cultures of a large ape-like creature. For example, there's the Yeti in Asia. You look at kind of the reports in various locations that are.
I think it froze.
Sorry, there was a bit of breakup. I didn't hear the rest of your question, Dwight.
Yeah, I didn't hear it either.
Perhaps the Yeti got to Dwight. I don't know. Dwight.
Dwight, are you there? Are you alive?
Well, this is a little bit concerning. Can't be a coincidence. I think Dwight was asking me about sort of why there's this cross-cultural belief of the Yeti in Asia, perhaps the abominable snowman, and I think it's just sort of ingrained within the human psyche to want to believe that this kind of boogeyman exists in the